It was a perfect early October night, almost as warm as summer, and the harvest moon dominated the sky. You could see everything. "Which one of these is yours?" asked the runt. Dearly straightened up proudly and took the runt by the hand. He pulled him to an overgrown corner of the field. The two boys pushed aside the long grass. The stone was set flat into the ground, and it had dates carved into it from 100 years before. Much of it was worn away, but beneath the dates it was possible to make out the words, "Dearly departed, will never be forgotten, I'll wager," said Dearly. "Yeah, that's what I'd say too," said the runt. They went out of the gate, down a gully, and into what remained of the old town. Trees grew through houses, and buildings had fallen in on themselves, but it wasn't scary. They played hide-and-seek. They explored. Dearly showed the runt some pretty cool places, including a one-room cottage that he said was the oldest building in that whole part of the county. It was in pretty good shape, too, considering how old it was. "I can see pretty good by moonlight," said the runt, "even inside. I didn't know that it was so easy." "Yeah," said Dearly, "and after a while you get good at seeing even when there ain't any moonlight." The runt was envious. "I got to go to the bathroom," said the runt. "Is there somewhere around here?" Dearly thought for a moment. "I don't know," he admitted. "I don't do that stuff anymore. There are a few outhouses still standing, but they may not be safe. Best just to do it in the woods." "Like a bear," said the runt. He walked out the back, into the woods that pushed up against the wall of the cottage, and went behind a tree. He'd never done that before, in the open air. He felt like a wild animal. When he was done, he wiped himself off with fallen leaves. Then he went back out the front. Dearly was sitting in a pool of moonlight, waiting for him. "How did you die?" asked the runt. "I got sick," said Dearly. "My maw cried and carried on something fierce. Then I died." "If I stayed here with you," said the runt, "would I have to be dead too?" "Maybe," said Dearly. "Well, yeah, I guess." "What's it like, being dead?" "I don't mind it," admitted Dearly. "Worst thing is not having anyone to play with." "But there must be lots of people up in that meadow," said the runt. "Don't they ever play with you?" "No," said Dearly. "Mostly they sleep. And even when they work, they can't be bothered to just go and see stuff and do things. They can't be bothered with me. You see that tree?" It was a beech tree, its smooth grey bark cracked with age. It sat in what must once have been the town square, 90 years before. "Yeah," said the runt. "You want to climb it?" "It looks kind of high." "It is, real high. But it's easy to climb. I'll show you." It was easy to climb. There were handholds in the bark, and the boys went up the big beech like a couple of monkeys or pirates or warriors. From the top of the tree one could see the whole world. The sky was starting to lighten, just a hair, in the east. Everything waited. The night was ending. The world was holding its breath, preparing to begin again. "This was the best day I ever had," said the runt. "Me too," said Dearly. "What are you going to do now?" "I don't know," said the runt. He imagined himself going on across the world, all the way to the sea. He imagined himself growing up and growing older, bringing himself up by his bootstraps. Somewhere in there, he would become fabulously wealthy, and then he would go back to the house with the twins in it, and he would drive up to their door in his wonderful car, or perhaps he would turn up at a football game. In his imagination, the twins had neither aged nor grown, and look down at them in a kindly way. He would buy them all, the twins, his parents, a meal at the finest restaurant in the city, and they would tell him how badly they had misunderstood him and mistreated him. They apologized and wept, and through it all he said nothing. He let their apologies wash over him. And then he would give each of them a gift, and afterward he would leave their lives once more, this time for good. It was a fine dream. In reality, he knew he would keep walking, and be found tomorrow or the day after that, and go home and be yelled at, and everything would be the same as it ever was, and day after day, hour after hour, until the end of time, he'd still be the runt, only they'd be mad at him for having dared to walk away. "I have to go to bed soon," said Dearly. He started to climb down the big beech tree. Climbing down the tree was harder, the runt found. You couldn't see where you were putting your feet and had to feel around for somewhere to put them. Several times he slipped and slid, but Dearly went down ahead of him and would say things like, "A little to the right now," and they both made it down just fine. The sky continued to lighten, and the moon was fading, and it was harder to see. They clambered back through the gully. Sometimes the runt wasn't sure that Dearly was there at all, but when he got to the top, he saw the boy waiting for him. They didn't say much as they walked up to the meadow filled with stones. The runt put his arm over Dearly's shoulder, and they walked in step up the hill. "Well," said Dearly, "thanks for coming over." "I had a good time," said the runt. "Yeah," said Dearly, "me too." Down in the woods somewhere, a bird began to sing. "If I wanted to stay," said the runt, all in a burst. Then he stopped. "I might never get another chance to change it," thought the runt. He'd never get to the sea. They'd never let him. Dearly didn't say anything, not for a long time. The world was grey. More birds joined the first. "I can't do it," said Dearly, eventually, "but they might." "Who?" "The ones in there." The fair boy pointed up the slope to the tumble-down farmhouse with the jagged broken windows, silhouetted against the dawn. The grey light had not changed it. The runt shivered. "There's people in there?" he said. "I thought you said it was empty." "It ain't empty," said Dearly. "I said nobody lives there. Different things." He looked up at the sky. "I got to go now," he added. He squeezed the runt's hand, and then he just wasn't there any longer. The runt stood in the little graveyard, all on his own, listening to the birdsong on the morning air. Then he made his way up the hill. It was harder by himself. He picked up his school bag from the place he had left it. He ate his last Milky Way and stared at the tumble-down building. The empty windows of the farmhouse were like eyes, watching him. It was darker inside there, darker than anything. He pushed his way through the weed-choked yard. The door to the farmhouse was mostly crumbled away. He stopped at the doorway, hesitating, wondering if this was wise. He could smell damp and rot and something else underneath. He thought he heard something move deep in the house, in the cellar, maybe, or the attic. A shuffle, maybe, or a hop. It was hard to tell. Eventually, he went inside. Nobody said anything. October filled his wooden mug with apple cider when he was done, and drained it, and filled it again. "It was a story," said December. "I'll say that for it." He rubbed his pale blue eyes with a fist. The fire was almost out. "What happened next?" asked June, nervously. "After he went into the house?" May, sitting next to her, put her hand on June's arm. "Better not to think about it," she said. "Anybody else want a turn?" asked August. There was silence. "Then I think we're done." "That needs to be an official motion," pointed out February. "All in favour?" said October. There was a chorus of ayes. "All against?" Silence. "Then I declare this meeting adjourned." They got up from the fireside, stretching and yawning, and walked away into the wood in ones and twos and threes, until only October and his neighbour remained. "Your turn in the chair next time," said October. "I know," said November. He was pale and thin-lipped. He helped October out of the wooden chair. "I like your stories. Mine are always too dark." "I don't think so," said October. "It's just that your nights are longer, and you aren't as warm." "Put it like that," said November, "and I feel better. I suppose we can't help who we are." "That's the spirit," said his brother. and they touched hands as they walked away from the fire's orange embers, taking their stories with them back into the dark. And that story is dedicated to Ray Bradbury.